Welcome to the Society.
Before we descend into madness, please be advised that the following program contains topics and cases describing graphic violence, strong sexual content, explicit language, and elements that may not be suitable for some audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm not really sure, ma'am. I just watched the biggest critter, but it smelled real bad. I'm a homeless female. I live right in the middle of the woods. 151 to the north of Claver on 1604 with lighters. This big thing was 75 feet away from me, smells awful, devoured a whole deer carcass, and then took off and, screamed, screeched, and took off across the street. I know you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but I'm dead serious. It was something very big, a lot bigger than me, out here. So, you thought somebody should know. I really don't know what you can do about it. How long did this happen? I want, immediately, I just, yeah. Well, I don't know if animal control,
Okay, again, now tell me, where was it? This is at 151 in Calaga?
Okay, yeah, the light at 151, this from Calera on 1604 or 1604 split, and you can get off on the access road to Calera, or you can take 151,
Right.
that light right there, and yeah, right in there. It is a very large, hairy animal.
On November 30th, 2009, the San Antonio Police Department were alerted by an unusual 911 call that reported an alleged Bigfoot sighting. The full audio, which captures the conversation between the dispatcher and a homeless couple, spanned over 8 minutes. Throughout the recording, the primary caller remains composed and serious as she recounts the events of that November 30th night. The caller expressed concern that her account might be met with disbelief, but she insisted on the truth of her experience. She described seeing a large creature approximately 75 feet away from her. Noting the foul odor it released, the creature, according to her, devoured an entire deer carcass before letting out a loud scream and swiftly fleeing across the street. Her 63-year-old husband, who stands at 6'3", supported her claims, claiming that despite having lived in the woods for 6 years, he had never encountered anything like this creature, which he described as being larger than himself. The couple reported that the creature walked upright as it carried the deer carcass over its shoulders as it headed into the surrounding woods. According to police records, although officers were dispatched to the location that night, no trace of the couple or even a creature were ever found.
Welcome to a world where darkness and mystery converge. Navigate the depths of horror and true crime and join a society beyond the ordinary, where buzzworthy topics, paranormal tales, and listener-submitted experiences blend into a realm of the unknown. You have crossed into a place where the unusual and the terrifying are just the beginning. My name is Ralph Anthony, and welcome to the Scream Society podcast.
Hello, Screamers. Welcome into another episode. Thank you so much for listening in. Are we all doing okay out there? I just turned 34 and also just discovered that our noses can sense when we're about to die. So check back in with me next week. I've got a jam-packed show, so without further ado, let's get into this week's Sinister Subjects. Question: who out there would sign a waiver, and attend a haunted attraction? Actually, I wouldn't even consider this a haunted attraction, but Attend an attraction where the scare actors are allowed to touch you, but not only touch you, tie you up, hit you, choke you, gag you, throw insects on you, and in some cases resulting in bug and spider bites, and just put you through any other intense, psychological, and torturous scenarios you can think of. And if you sign up for the Desolation Experience, which would be a 10-hour-long experience filled with challenges, you will win a grand prize of $20,000. However, as of 2023, no one has ever won that challenge. Would you sign up? McKamey Manor, originally located in San Diego, California, has since relocated to Lawrence County, Tennessee. You can essentially sign up and attend with a donation of a 50-pound bag of dog food, which is for the owner Russ McKamey's dogs, which is kind of sweet. Or maybe even for some attendees, actually. Because I've seen some videos of them making people eat dog food and other questionable substances. Well, this last July, Russ McKamey, the owner, was arrested in Summertown on July 19th after allegedly attacking his girlfriend, raping and strangling her until she was unconscious. He was charged with attempted second-degree murder, rape, and domestic assault. Initially, he was booked on a $1,000 bond and told to stay away from the victim, but then more charges came up, accusing him of trying to kill her more than once. And according to court records, the first incident happened on July 17th, 2024, where police say he raped her and strangled her into unconsciousness as well. It doesn't surprise you when you think about the type of attraction that this guy's running, right? Now, past participants of the attraction have come forward and alleged that the experience is way too out of hand, way too out of control. There was even a petition created in 2019 with thousands of signatures trying to shut the place down, which police have been dispatched to the house on several occasions. This whole situation is a mess, and shockingly enough, McKamey Manor is still operating despite all of this. Where I had a hard time finding truth was when I came across the reviews of this place. It's a really bizarre and almost as if someone on the McKamey Manor team is writing out, or maybe there's some type of AI program that is writing these reviews. Because on Google, McKamey Manor holds a 2.2 out of 5-star review, and there are some reviews, like I said, with questionable things to say. So here are a few of these reviews, and I do have to issue a trigger warning here. This place was amazing. I took my 9-year-old autistic niece and she couldn't stop screaming because it was so fun. She shredded her vocal cords from all the excitement, so it was kind of hard to figure out what she was saying. Another, this is amazing. I brought my 3-year-old niece. She was screaming in joy within the first few minutes. By the end, she never came out. She loved it so much that she didn't want to leave, I guess. Another, love this place. I brought my 2-year-old niece and she absolutely adored it. She was crying and screaming most of the time, but she finally was quiet when they ripped out her vocal cords with rusty pliers. They also ripped out her old tooth and all of the others. 100 out of 10 would recommend again. I took my autistic nephews. They were so excited. I even brought my mom's friend. Like, do you see what I'm saying? They go on and on and on, and there's so many of them from people with different usernames. It is so bizarre. Like, is this satire? It is safe to say that it has been one very dark summer. Dark year, actually. It's an election year. Tensions are running higher. Assassination attempts, candidates dropping out, misinformation, regressive wish lists. It's madness. But that's only what's going on in the US, because one of the biggest pop stars in the world, Taylor Swift, had to cancel 3 of her shows in Vienna because there was a confirmed plot to attack her Eras tour. It's pretty chilling. According to Karl Nehammer, Austria's chancellor, the suspects had really detailed plans that could have resulted in a tragedy similar to what happened in Paris, Manchester, or even Moscow. Niehammer said the two suspects wanted to leave a trail of blood behind. Franz Ruff, who's in charge of public safety in Austria, mentioned that when the police searched one of the suspects' homes, they found machetes, knives, chemical explosives, ISIS propaganda, and 21,000 euros in counterfeit cash. Now, investigators even said that the suspects might have been planning to run over fans outside the stadium using a vehicle disguised as a police car. There was also a plan to set off explosives inside the venue where Swift was supposed to perform. And before any decisions were made, authorities had said that the shows would still go on with heightened security. However, Taylor's team decided to cancel them for safety reasons. And I don't think there could be anything that would convince me otherwise to attend any event after a threat like that has been made. Authorities detained a 19-year-old on August 7th and arrested another suspect later in the day. Both were reportedly radicalized online, with one of them allegedly pledging allegiance to ISIS. The suspects were planning attacks around Vienna, Swift's concert being one of the attacks, and authorities then arrested a third male involved in the plot, which is a 17-year-old who was employed by the facility management company. That means that he would have been on duty during Swift's concert. That would have been their way in, I'm assuming. Authorities even questioned a 15-year-old, though he wasn't arrested. As of right now, all suspects' identities have not been identified, at least at the time of this recording. And it's just a really frightening situation. And thankfully, it was stopped before anything could happen. But personally, this is why I have such a hard time going out to events with larger crowds, even movie theaters. I'm always looking for exits and focusing on people when they get up to go to the bathroom. It's because of these mass shootings and terrorist threats. Adding on to this, a week prior to when the threats were made in Austria, there were multiple stabbings that occurred in the UK at a Taylor Swift-themed kids dance and yoga class on July 29th. A 17-year-old boy attacked the group, killing 3 children, Alice De Silva, who was 9, Elise Dot Stancombe, who was 7, and BB King, who was 6, and injured 10 others. What is with these 15 to 18-year-old boys doing all of this? The stabbings then led to riots and protests when the police hadn't released the suspect's name since he was 17 at the time, which then led to online rumors that a Muslim immigrant had been arrested for murder, which then sparked anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim protests by far-right groups, leading to hundreds of arrests, injured officers, and damaged buildings. Crazy enough, the suspect was turning 18 within a week of his arrest, which would have lifted the hold over his identity. However, Judge Maneri KC decided to just release his identity as Alex Rudakabana, who was actually born in Wales. This news didn't stop the riots. Instead, the riots spread, with all of these extremists clashing. It has spread across England and even into Northern Ireland. Imagine the world coming to an end all because of misinformation. As of right now, Taylor Swift has not come forward on whether or not she will cancel the rest of her Eras tour because of these threats, but I'm hoping the right decisions will be made here. And I'm not trying to sound morbid or anything. However, it's hard not to think about where our world is headed and what the outcome of this is going to ensue. It is just so scary right now. Keep the conversation going. Beacons.ai/The Scream Society. I am exhausted. Let's take a break. Terrifying but true, plus listener submissions after this.
Are you an insatiable chismosa? Do you thirst for drama? In need of some advice? If so, Poison Touch is the podcast to give you all the best and worst advice to deal with all of life's predicaments. Join me, Jake, and my friend as we delve into viewer-submitted stories and questions to deliver earnest and sometimes messy advice. Along the way, you're in for some laughs, the occasional tearjerker, and one hell of a good time. Check out Poison Touch wherever you get your podcasts and submit your own stories at poisontouch.com or call in at 312-725-6483 to leave a story and get 3 tarot cards pulled with your advice. Whether you need advice or just want to stick around for the ride, Tune into Poison Touch and we got you covered.
When the unthinkable becomes reality, we find ourselves questioning everything, as some stories are too terrifying but true. On June 12, 2012, Danielle Harkins, a 35-year-old literacy teacher from St. Petersburg, Florida, was arrested after allegedly involving her students in a bizarre and dangerous ritual. Harkins, who taught at the Leoman Asian Neighborhood Family Center for about 4 years, was accused of convincing a group of 7 teens, 6 boys and 1 girl, that they had demons inside them. Harkins told the teens that the only way to rid themselves of these demons was by cutting their skin and burning the wounds. The ritual took place in a park near the St. Petersburg Pier. The group gathered around a small fire, chanting and dancing as part of the ceremony. 2 of the students were injured during the ritual. In one case, Harkins allegedly used a broken bottle to cut a student's neck and then heated a small key to cauterize the wound. Another student suffered second-degree burns after Harkins attempted to brand him by pouring perfume on his body and setting it on fire. Despite the severity of the incident, the teens involved were hesitant to speak with police, and none reported the event to their parents. The incident came to light after a 16-year-old boy texted a friend about what had happened, prompting the friend's parents to alert the authorities. To this day, the teens well into adulthood have yet to speak fully of what exactly happened. Police expressed concern that the students' continued loyalty to Harkins might indicate deeper, unreported issues. Those who knew Harkins described her as a skilled and intelligent teacher, but they were shocked by the accusations. Her colleagues noticed that she had recently developed an interest in extreme religious practices, though they had no idea it had escalated to this level. Harkins had also just gone through a divorce, leaving her to care for her 2 young children, a 4-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. Neighbors reported that she had made some strange comments about demons, though she assured the neighbors they were okay and not possessed. In the end, Harkins was found guilty of just 1 count of child abuse and 1 count of aggravated battery, as the other teens would not testify. She was only jailed for 6 months in a Florida court, and since her release in 2012, has kept out of the public eye. Thank you to those of you who submitted into the podcast. You can send any questions or stories to the podcast Instagram at Scream Society Podcast or beacons.ai/The Scream Society, which is essentially the podcast website. I created a really cool little space for the podcast that's not on social media. So if you want to check that out, beacons.ai/The Scream Society. Once again, Nev Campbell back for Scream 7. And I'm assuming you're asking if this is true or if I'm excited. Either or, yes. Scream is my favorite horror franchise and was my introduction into the horror genre. And if you're listening and have seen my episode highlight videos on Instagram, you can clearly see a Scream ghost face collection behind me. But yes, I am excited about Nev's return because she has interviewed recently and said that the franchise is going to focus on Sydney again. It's rumored Patrick Dempsey and Courtney Cox are also returning, which is exciting. And I'm very well aware of the controversy. First starting back in 2022 when Spyglass Media and Nev had that whole pay dispute resulting in Nev's absence on Scream 6. Then last year, 2023, Melissa Barrera was fired for publicly sharing her stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict. So for 7, the franchise is choosing to focus back on Sydney again. But this has had fans divided and, of course, fighting. And I don't want to get into it fully on this episode, but I do trust that Nev Campbell is a woman of principle and kindness and wouldn't have accepted a role knowing the studio's intentions were bad, or at least I would hope. But am I excited? Yes. It's hard for an original Scream fan not to be excited, to be fair. What advice would you give someone looking to starting a podcast? That it's a lot harder than it seems. Honestly. And I know these celebrities make it look and sound so easy.
Remember, they're backed by these big media companies, FYI. But I think sticking to it is probably the real challenge. And from experience, I can't even count how many times I've said I'm done. Whether that's based off of the engagement with my content, a lot going on personally, burnout, I'm having issues filming, technology, all of that. But I think it's worth noting that it really is a lot of work. What else is there? Try to keep your technical issues to yourself. You don't owe anyone any explanation, but also try and build trust with your audience. Try not to make empty promises. Another big one is discouragement. Online content creation is so competitive. Even podcasting, there's so many podcasts to choose from. However, engagement on social media does not equal more podcast streams. You have to think outside the gram. Go into it with, I wouldn't say low expectations, but go into it humbly. Don't compare yourself to other creators. Be original, be yourself. But most importantly, create your own community, because that's honestly what keeps me coming back. I love connecting with other individuals, even if I'm still growing, which, by the way, leave me a 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and a written review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. Thank you so much, especially if you're enjoying the show. But yeah, I love connecting with those who share similar interests or just want to discuss a topic off the show further. Also, try not to rely on people you knew before, like your family, anyone you grew up with, to be your biggest supporters. Just have fun, honestly. I know it's easier said than done, but honestly, don't pay attention to numbers and all of that. You have to learn to shut that off and just be grateful for the connections you do have and will make. Let's end with this listener story. Years ago, when I was about 11, my mom used to force myself and 2 younger brothers to go to a church that was at the end of our block. Afterward, my mom and siblings and a few other small families would always go back to a family's house on our block that we would regularly attend church with. It was always a very odd and bland experience, as everyone just sat and talked quietly while eating tortilla chips and beans. I remember this exactly because to this day, I cannot stand the sight of either. One of the weird things I always noticed was the father of the family would always disappear once we all were over. On one occasion, while throwing my paper bowl in the trash, the father whispered and signaled me to meet him at a room on the other end of this hallway. I asked, "What?" And he would just say, "Come over here really quick." Something didn't feel right, so I acted as if my mom had called me. He did it a few other times on separate occasions, but I started acting like I didn't hear anything altogether. One of the last times I actually looked toward the hallway for whatever dumb reason and decided to just go toward him and the room. However, I was stopped by the actual father, who had been outside with some of his guy friends. He asked where I was going, as the bathroom was on the opposite end of the house. When I looked back toward the room, there was nobody there. To this day, I still think that I just imagined that, but after having a conversation randomly with my mom, she had said that the wife would always tell her stories of strange occurrences happening to her, such as seeing shadows, hearing voices, to even having her hair pulled. The family abandoned the house, or it was taken away from them. All those details remain blurry, but to this day, I question who the heck was calling me, waiting on the other side of that door. To be honest, I thought the story was going to go in a completely different direction. I literally have goosebumps though. That is terrifying. And I wonder what exactly was behind the door, or what would have happened. Like, do we think it could have been a ghost, maybe a demon, a doppelganger, a shapeshifter? This is horrifying. Thank you for tuning into the Scream Society podcast, hosted, written, produced, and edited by yours truly, Ralph Anthony. Help the society grow by subscribing on your favorite platform and leave a rating and review. I always strive for 5s. Have a horror or paranormal experience? Want me to answer your questions on the show? Submit to beacons.ai/The Scream Society. Connect with the podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Scream Society Podcast. And until next time, I'll scare you on the next episode.